started talking straight away. I'm here in Shaver Lake with my wife, Rachel, who's behind the camera.
Hello.
We are surrounded by, obviously, the lake, and then pine and fir trees and ducks and squirrels and chipmunks and little midgy fly things, and so far no mosquitoes, but hopefully none. I wanted to make a video today about poetry as usual, but I wanted it to be spontaneous, so this is relative spontaneity for that. I was thinking, because we came to the lake yesterday and we swam in it first in the evening, and as I started swimming in it I thought of a line I had used a long time ago about a lake holding the moon in its prayer of water. And it's funny, I've written that and not since gone in a lake and thought about it, but as I was swimming through the lake I thought the lake is like a prayer. The lake is like, I don't know, like hands holding like around the body and encapsulating. And I'd felt a little bit frustrated before I went in the lake, which I kind of felt like today as well, when it was like both times, as soon as I swam, that frustration kind of lifted off me. And that is another way in which I thought it is similar to a prayer, because I think if you pray intentionally and consciously, and it doesn't necessarily have to be to a god or to anything, it can just be a quiet, reflective moment where you think about things that you're grateful for or hoping for or whatever else. I feel like that can kind of cleanse and lift you as well. So I drew a parallel between those things, and it happened quite instinctively because that poetry line went through my head, as I said, kind of as soon as I went in. Probably helps that it's cold as well, because it shocks the system a little bit. It's not the coldest lake we've been in. We went to Crater Lake a couple years ago, and that had like glacial water, snow melt even going into it. So that was, you could go in for about 5 minutes and have to get out so you didn't get hypothermia. Poetry is a lot about the art of observation. Obviously, that's why I tried to start the video. I'm like, you've got the lake, okay, what are we noticing about the lake? But it's gently like rippling up onto the shore. You know, there's different patterns on the lake. It's reflecting the trees in the distance, which, as I said before, they're pine and fir, which are specific details that you can capture about the nature around you. Now you can use an app. If you don't know the specific names of trees, to kind of learn about their characteristics. You can read about and learn about the place that you're in and the history of it. But I think one of the main things for me is to mindfully walk around on your own with a notepad, with no other device or distraction. You know, maybe you want your phone in your pocket in case you like bump into a bear or something. But to pay attention, like I just saw then, I mean, right now it's distracting, so I'm trying to talk to a camera, but I saw a crow kind of move like that and just kind of swoop and land on a branch. And now if I'm thinking about writing later, I'm like going to want to talk about like the way in which the crow was flying, the way in which its wings kind of stopped shaking as it was approaching like the glide to the landing. You know, I'm looking again like patterns of the bark. I don't have a particularly apt description off the top of my head, but you can go and you can like feel it. You can be tactile. You can be like, okay, you can say the bark looks rough, but if you go and touch the bark, you go and touch a leaf, make sure you're not touching poisonous plants or something. But then you can kind of describe sensorially what is around you. So that includes the, you know, smell. I don't smell a ton now. Maybe a little bit of like smoke from fire pits that people are lighting. What I can see, the colours, the patterns, the greenness, how it's affecting me, like the affect, the emotion, the pull, the feeling, that can all filter in. So I think to like answer more directly, like the first thing you do is like sensory record the things that you can see and think about and whatever else. Even better if you can create some sort of metaphor around what it is that you can interact with. There's a car coming. See that? If you're writing a poem and you wanted a necessary interruption, you could write about the car coming. Poetry isn't just recording what you see and you sense, you wed it and mix it into the imagination. So after, I think, that you're going around and you're recording everything, I think it's important to do some sort of meditative exercise. Like if I look at the lake for a really long time and then I go back to the RV or the tent or wherever you're like sleeping, see if you can take 5 minutes and kind of breathe and think about all the different things that will start kind of interacting with other things. Like water, for me, it will bring about memories of water. It will bring about the liquid experience of how the brain works. You know, a lot of us is made up of liquid. I'll draw different metaphors between, you know, what water will evoke. So yeah, I think it's record sensory details, go back, use imagination, and interact with it in a meditative way, and then take the raw materials of the sensory details, some of the stuff that when you've meditated it's brought some stuff up that's maybe more personal and flowering in a different way, and then start writing it out and webbing these things together. And I usually am a big proponent of write first, think later. So if you have all these sensory details, you have your meditation, you sit and think for a bit, and then once you go, then just scribble, and you will start talking about the different things that you experience in the beautiful places. Even now, I'm touching the sand. Look what it does. I can sprinkle it. Now I can write about how it feels. It's a fine sand on Shaver Lake. I might also make writing meditations. I'm going to make more. And there's one on the YouTube channel at the moment, which is linked up there. And that should be a helpful way to start getting those juices flowing.
What are some of your favorite nature poets?
My favourite nature poet, I think one of the more obvious answers to that is Mary Oliver. I think she captures nature in a really special way, and she I think the story was when she was a kid, she lived kind of near the woods, and it was solace from her family life to go out and walk around the woods and start, you know, writing about it and capturing that. Now, some critics of her would say that she spent so much time looking at nature, she wasn't necessarily talking about the rest of the world that she lived in. But although that's a valid point, I don't think it matters. I don't really care about stuff like that. I mean, I like that she captures nature in such a way that makes you just think about nature and how we relate to it, and I don't think you need to bring in all the stuff of the modern world necessarily for it to be interesting. Like I was just saying, like a car drove in here. Maybe if I was writing the poem about the experience of sitting on the sand and that, I'm not necessarily going to be like, and then the motor came in. It depends on the tone of the poem. So she's definitely up there, and she also wrote a brilliant book called, I hope I get this right, A Poet's Handbook. I think it's the best beginner's poetry book to get, but I don't think it's just for beginners, in the sense that I think it's accessible, but I also think for anyone, no matter where you are in your development, it's always good to go back to some of the basics. One of the key things, there's two key things I remember from that book. One is she said something along the lines of, this is a paraphrase, but I'm capturing it: verbs are worth $1, adjectives are worth $0.25, so 25 cents. So there's a verb, stuff your poems with verbs, and verbs that are most urgent or the most evocative for what's going on there. Like even now it's like, did I clasp the sand? Did I pinch the sand? Did I pick up the sand? You know, there's different ways in which you can make that as strong as possible. So like verbs are right there at the top. And another thing she said, and this kind of put my mind at ease, is that poetry is a river and we can go to it as a source of like picking poems up out of it, and we can also write poems and just pour them into the river, in that it's always happening. I think it's a good perspective because we can get quite involved in our own work and where ours is going and how special we might be and all this other stuff. And it's a reminder that it's like, hey, it's just this ever-flowing river that you can contribute to, but it's still a river that's way bigger than you. And I think that's a really nice way to think. The other poet, I mean, these are just things that are coming to my head, and this is someone I've been reading more recently, is Ted Hughes. Ted Hughes, I mean, could be a bit controversial, but I'm not going to get into that right now. His poetry there's a lot of nature in it, but it takes on a more mythological characteristic. There's one book, one of the formative poetry collections that I read earlier on was Crow, and it's kind of this almost godlike mythological creature just called Crow, who's there at the beginning of the world and through all these interesting different things. So
can I adjust because of all the kids in the background?
Oh yeah.
Are you good there?
We're back. And probably his best book and is the epic Tales from Ovid, where he talks about there's a duck behind me. Don't worry about Tales from Ovid.
There's lots of ducks behind you. Look to that way too.
If Ted Hughes was writing about the ducks, it would get very occultic, very dark. They would take on this really amplified role that's beyond their role just in nature, because the duck would become an archetype. So Mary Oliver and Ted Hughes, they came to my brain. Look at these, lovely. How many are there? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I feel like they're coming in, so I know I need to say a final word, but I also think the ducks might want to say it. Final word.
Those are all our subscribers.
There's more ducks. If you like more ducks, please subscribe. Quack that like button and the subscribe button and share it and all that. Final thoughts. I had it in my head and then it went because of the ducks. In short, if you're somewhere and you want to be, write about it, you want to be inspired by it, the simple thing to do is observe and write down what you observe. Pay attention to your senses: touch, taste, sound, sight, duck, and and record it. Then do your meditation, and then stream of consciousness, which is write without thinking, and then edit it into whatever you think is best. Wow, they got really cool blue feathers on them. If you want to see more videos about poets, poems, poetry, bit of travel, and other poetry goodness, please hit like, subscribe. What do you think? What's your writing process when you go somewhere new that's interesting or fun or different or beautiful or whatever else? I'd love to hear about it. Write a comment below and I'll certainly read it and probably respond to it. Did I miss anything, Rachel?
Say thanks for watching.
Thank you so much for watching. It means a lot because there's so many videos out there and there's so many other videos you could watch. I know I'm a newer channel, but I'm back to doing more frequent videos, and it's a pleasure to have you here, and I am very appreciative of the support. See you soon. Happy writing, or unhappy writing, depends on the mood. Bye.
Good job. Is there anything else you want to say?
I don't think so. We're just about to have someone walk by, so it seems like a good time to stop.
Okay.